Hi boys and girls! Today we're going to begin day 8. This lesson is a combination of the Great Minds Teacher and the Classroom Teacher lessons. We will begin our novel, Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, and I'm super excited. So we'll need a couple of things for this lesson. You're going to need your novel, Thunder Rolling in the Mountains. You either got this on the first day of school or you got this in your remote learning resources, materials pickup, whatever that's called. So you'll also need your Wit and Wisdom in Sync journal for day 8. And you can find that on Schoology. So I want you to go ahead and pause this video and you can get that. Okay, so at the beginning of this module, we learned how the United States westward expansion really impacted Native Americans who were living in that area at the time. We then focused our attention on one specific tribe, the Nez Perce, and we learned about their traditional culture, their ways of life, and how deeply connected to their homeland they were. Today, we're going to start finding out what happened when the United States and its push to expand westward began to threaten not only the Nez Perce homeland, but their ability to live according to their core beliefs and values. And that's right, these were definitely two very different cultures in conflict. So our focusing question for this learning arc is, how does the conflict between the Nez Perce and the U.S. government reveal differing cultural beliefs and values? Do me a favor and give me a thumbs up if you've heard of this word, conflict. If not, you already have gotten a sense of its meaning when I gave you a little preview of what's coming. A conflict is an argument or fight between two opposing sides. Another word might be struggle. In these next set of lessons, we're going to zoom in on a specific moment in history when that growing conflict between the Nez Perce and the United States government erupted. This story is the story about this conflict is fascinating, and as you're reading, I want you to really think about what this conflict shows about each of the group's beliefs and their values. What better way to learn about this very tumultuous moment in history than by reading this fabulous book? Today we're going to begin reading the historical fiction novel called Thunder Rolling in the Mountains by Scott Odell and Elizabeth Hall. Fun fact is Scott Odell began writing this book and he died before finishing it. He was working with his wife, Elizabeth Hall, on the research for this novel, and she finished writing it after his death. I love this book. One of my favorite things about starting a new book is looking at the cover. I love to look through it and think about the titles, and think about where the book might take me. So let's take a peek at those front and back covers. So you can either use my screen or the book that you have at home. But first I want you to take a minute to study the front cover. The title, the author's names. What's the title make you think about? Have you read any other books by these authors? Look at the picture closely. What do you notice and wonder about it? Pause the video and go to your InSync journal to notice and wonder about the front cover of your book. Okay, now that you've noticed and wondered about the front cover, I want you to notice and wonder in that same chart here on your Day 8 InSync journal about the back cover. So I want you to go ahead and read the text on the back cover and pause and add to your notice and wondering chart now. So the second I saw the horse on the front cover, I knew I was going to have to find out more. Look how the girl is riding bareback and carrying a long pole. You can tell the horse is running with his mane blowing back. That's really hard to do, to ride a horse bareback like that. You have to be a really good horseback rider. Thunder rolling in the mountains. Maybe there's a storm. Look at how beautiful those mountains are. Remember the video we watched about this land? Take a minute to read the back cover of the book and add to that notice and wonder chart, or anything else about the front and back you'd like to add. So our content framing question today is, what do I notice and wonder in Chapter 1 of Thunder Rolling in the Mountains? Let's get reading. Before we start, I want you to make sure you have your Notice and Wonder chart easily available on your computer. We will be listening to Mrs. Cade, a teacher from Whitman, read Chapter 1. She has the text on the screen, but you are more than welcome to follow along how you feel most comfortable. You have the book, you can listen, you can pause and read on your own, or you can follow along on the computer. Whatever you prefer is fine. But while we're reading Chapter 1, I want you to notice and wonder in this chart on your Day 8 in Sync journal.
Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, Chapter 1. That day, we dug roots in Deer Meadow. Now we were riding fast for home. There were 7 of us on good horses. I rode in the lead, pulling a travois filled with coos roots. We were on a trail of fallen trees and rock slides, but a storm was coming, and it was the shorter way to our village. I had not ridden the trail for many moons. It had changed a lot in that time. We came upon row after row of fallen trees too jumbled for the travois, and I was forced to go around them. We came to a treeless spur on the mountain. The north wind blew down from Hawk's Peak. It was spring, but the peak was covered with snow, and the wind whipped the snow down upon us in wet clouds. It was hard to see the trail. "I am freezing," Little Lark, one of my cousins, said. "I think we should go back and take the long trail." The other 5 riders, 2 of my cousins among them, agreed with her, but the girls sat on their horses and said nothing. "There's no hurry I know about," Little Lark said. "We told our mothers before we left to dig roots that we would be gone 3 suns. The third sun is somewhere in the mist. It will be above us when we reach home." I gave her my blanket, and we rode on and left the mountain spur. The trail dipped down out of the wind into a place of tall grass and a winding stream. It was a beautiful meadow. I remembered riding through it at the beginning of winter when the aspen trees had turned to gold. The aspen trees were gone. Their branches were lying around, but the trees were gone. They had been sawed off close to the ground. I saw smoke rising at the far end of the meadow. It came from a cabin made from the aspen trees. We pulled up our horses and sat staring. The horses were nervous. They raised their heads and sniffed the air. We were more nervous than the horses. "What is it, Sound of Running Feet?" asked my friend White Feather. "White people," I said. "Indians do not build cabins." Many times when our chieftains talked, I heard them speak of the white people. They had not set foot upon our land, only on the land that belonged to a part of our tribe, those who called themselves Christians, those who had sold their land to the Big Father who lived in a far-away place called Washington. The white people were called settlers, and they came to plant seeds, but mostly to dig gold out of the streams and the rocks. I cautioned my cousins and the other girls to ride at a trot and to keep their eyes to themselves. None of them had a weapon, but I carried a rifle. My grandfather, old Joseph, had given it to me more than 6 snows ago, as he lay dying. Until my 14th birthday, 3 moons ago, it had hung in the lodge. Then I took it from its place, for I, Sound of Running Feet, was then a woman. In this short time I had learned to use it, At first it was too heavy to lift, and I had to prop it up on a branch or on my horse's back before I could shoot. Now I could handle it and shoot straight. My father did not like the rifle, but old Joseph had given it to me. It would be bad to speak against the gift now that old Joseph was dead. He could come back and make trouble. 3 children sat in the cabin doorway. When we rode by, they were as quiet as mice when an owl is around. Our trail crossed the stream a short way beyond the cabin. A man and a woman with her hair piled on top of her head stood in the stream up to their knees. The woman was shaking a copper pan, letting the stream wash over it. The man kept filling the pan with dirt that a boy of our people brought him in a shovel. The woman kept working when she caught sight of us, but the man stopped. He was tall and thin and had a scraggly beard and a small bald head. He said something I did not understand, which the boy changed into our words. He wants to know how you are, the boy said. I paused with the others silent behind me and did not answer his question. I said, "Ask the white man why he has built a cabin on land that he does not own." The boy I knew about. He showed Nimipu tattoos on the back of his hands. He had gone to the mission school near the Snake River at Lapwai, the place of the butterflies. His name was Storm Cloud, and he had been mixed up in a murder. I asked him again. He looked at me with anger in his gaze before he spoke to the white man. The white man said, and Storm Cloud changed his words, "You Nez Perce own too much land. You can't use all the land, not even half of it, not even a tenth of the land. You are a greedy bunch." The whites called us Nez Perce, although that was not our name. They said it meant hole through the nose. None of our people ever put ornaments in their noses, but when the whites decided something was so, nothing could change their minds. All of us were angry. We glared at each other. Then the man warned us not to send our warriors to talk to him. "If you do, there'll be trouble," he said. "My name is Jason Upright, and I have friends." I pressed my lips tight to hold back the words. Then I dug my heels into my pony's sides, and we all rode through the stream and across the meadow. There was a tall hillock at the bottom of the meadow covered with trees. As we came to the top, I jumped off my horse and took careful aim with my rifle at the pan Jason Upright's wife held in her hands. The shot made a big hole in the pan and tossed it high in the air. Our trail followed the winding stream and crossed it many times. So we had trouble with the travois piled high with coos roots. We also came upon a bear, a grizzly bear, standing in the middle of the trail eating berries from a juniper tree. He stretched up taller than I did sitting on my horse. We waited at a distance until he had eaten all the berries he wanted. Yet we reached home before the windstorm swept down from the mountains.
Okay, if you haven't done so, I'd like for you to pause this video, and I would like for you to go Notice and Wonder in this Notice and Wonder chart on your Day 8 in Sync journal. Okay, so did reading Chapter 1 spark a lot of questions for you? It did for me, especially about the characters we met. I also noticed that there was a conflict or disagreement almost immediately in the story, and I'm really anxious to keep reading. So we're going to focus our notice and wondering on the characters and the conflict to begin to figure out what's going on in chapter 1. So first, let's think about the narrator. Who is actually telling the story? I want you to pause the video and jot down your thoughts on your Day 8 Instinct Journal on the section that looks like this. Okay, so what do we think? Well, I noticed right away that the narrator is a character in the story because she uses the words I, me, my, and we. So who is she? And what details help you figure that out? Well, from some of the details in chapter 1, I concluded that the narrator is a 14-year-old Nez Perce girl named Sound of Running Feet. I wondered about the author's choice of having a young girl tell I wondered about the narrator's choice of having a young girl tell it from her perspective, especially because we learned that the roles of boys and girls and men and women are different within the Nez Perce culture. We've learned a lot about westward expansion and the westward expansion and now we're actually going to see these historical events from the eyes of this young Nez Perce woman. So what other characters do we meet in chapter 1? We meet, and you can add these to your Day 8 Instinct Journal. We met White Feather, Little Lark, and the other Nez Perce girls. We meet Jason Upright, who is a white settler, and we met his wife. And we meet Stormcloud, a Nez Perce boy who is working with the settlers. Okay, so what did you notice and wonder? That's what we're going to think about next. So we're going to really focus our notice and wonder charts on our characters now. So what did you notice about Sound of Running Feet and wonder about her? So let's record our thinking. In your Instinct Journal, you're going to find this chart. So we have in the first column, characters. Second column is I notice. Third is I wonder. And then finally, this seems important because. So we're going to make our typical notice and wonder chart a bit more fancy to help us think more deeply about the characters that we meet in chapter 1. So in that first column called characters, we're going to record the names of the characters we meet in chapter 1. So first, let's focus on Sound of Running Feet. In the first rowing column, I'm already wondering about her name. So in the middle columns, we'll record what we notice and wonder about that character, and in the last column, we'll reflect on why those details we notice might be important. So I'm going to show you this example of something I noticed and wondered about Sound of Running Feet. So I was thinking about the scene where Sound of Running Feet and the other Nez Perce girls ride past the white settlers' cabin. And I noticed the other Nez Perce girls were virtually silent and didn't say anything. But I did notice the Sound of Running Feet speaks to the settlers. She ignores the white man's greeting, which to me seemed kind of rude, and she asks why they built a cabin on Nez Perce land. I also noticed that she doesn't speak English. So Stormcloud, the Nez Perce boy working with the settlers, translates for her. So I put in my I notice column, she speaks to the white settlers asking why they built a cabin on Nez Perce land. So thinking about the way Sound of Running Feet speaks up made me wonder, is she the leader of the girls in her tribe? I thought about these details some more. Sound of Running Feet speaks to the white settlers, but not to answer the man's greeting. Then I thought that maybe she's not really rude. She seems angry that the settlers are on her people's land and she confronts them. So this seems like a really important detail. It helps us understand her character. She seems bold and unafraid, especially when you compare her with the other girls. Weren't there 5 of them? And she was the only one to speak up. Okay, so I've added the first example into your Instinct Journal for you. For this check for understanding, you're going to record your noticings and wonderings about Sound of Running Feet and the other characters. Then explain why they're important. So the first thing that you're going to do is record a detail you notice about sound of running feet, and ask and record a wondering question about this detail, and then explain why this detail seems important, and then repeat this process for at least 2 other characters, creating a new row on your chart for each character. You're going to look for one more notice and one more wonder and why it might seem important for sound of running feet, the White family, and storm cloud. So I've added those characters in for you. So you can go ahead and pause this video, and I would like for you to complete the graphic organizer that looks like this in your Day 8 In Sync journal now. Okay, so remember, a conflict is an argument or fight between 2 opposing sides. In a story, we often use conflict to mean a problem that characters face in a story. So for example, a character might struggle with something inside themselves, or our character might struggle with something in the outside natural world which is out of their control. Did you notice a conflict between these characters in the chapter? What do they argue or disagree about? Go ahead and pause the video to record this definition, both definitions, in your In Sync journal. There is a spot for it. Okay, so let's record what we notice and wonder about a conflict in Chapter 1. You'll want to have your In Sync journal open to this section. Rather than focus on the characters like we did in the first chart, we're going to focus on the conflict. In the first column, we'll record the characters and the characters who are involved in this conflict. So for this first conflict, we have sound of running feet and the white settlers. So did you notice a conflict between sound of running feet and the white settlers? Then in the middle column, you'll record what you notice and then what you wonder about this conflict. And then what details in this first chapter indicate that there is a conflict? What did those details make you wonder about? Finally, in this last column, you'll reflect on why those details might be important. So right now, what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video, and for this final check for understanding, you will record 1 or 2 details that indicate a conflict between characters in the first chapter of the story. So the first thing that you're going to do is record 1 or 2 details you notice that indicate a conflict. Ask and record wondering questions about these details, and record why these details seem important. When you complete this, you may go on to the next, come back to this video and we'll go on to the next slide. So go ahead and pause and do this now. Okay, so that first chapter really drew me in right from the start because I could tell there was a conflict brewing between the Nez Perce and the settlers moving onto their homeland. There also seemed to be a conflict within the Nez Perce tribe. Sound of Running Feet said that some of the tribe members sold their land to the Big Father in Washington, D.C. I wonder if she meant the U.S. government. Did you also notice the boy with the white settlers? Do we think that he was Namipu or Sound of Running Feet's people? I wonder why he was with the settlers, working for them and translating for them. I'm really excited to continue this book, but we have one last assignment for today. In your In Sync journal, you're going to answer this question. How does the conflict in Chapter 1 connect to or support what you already know about the impact of westward expansion on the Native Americans? So I want you to think about the conflict between Sound of Running Feet and the white settlers, and think about the impact of westward expansion on the Native Americans and how that conflict connects to or supports that impact. So here's what you must have. You must answer the prompt question. You must provide at least 1 piece of evidence from a previous reading to help support your answers, so you can look at handout 2A or 3B in your workbook. You must provide at least 1 piece of evidence from Chapter 1 of the story Thunder Rolling in the Mountains to help support your answer, and you must have correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar. This will be a graded assignment to show me that you are able to pull evidence from different sources and to support your answer. And you're going to type that in this box down here on your Day 8 In Sync journal. And when you're done, you have completed your Day 8 lesson, both the the Great Minds teacher and the classroom teacher lesson. So wonderful job, and we will pick up with day 9 on our next day.